Historical context for Ukraine, part 4. Okay, so we talked about 2014 is this real turning point, right? Putin invades and takes over and annexes Crimea, which is this important little peninsula of land from Ukraine sticking out into the Black Sea. And really, I just want to point out for a second that Putin has really been like taking some pages out of the playbook of another dictator who ruled Germany in the 1930s. Every time I say his actual name, my video gets reported for violating community guidelines. So he who must not be named. What I mean by that is what Putin has been doing is he has been extending his influence across Eastern Europe. One, by backing and like propping up leaders, sometimes dictators, sometimes democratically, air quotes, elected, who support him. But also when he does annex land or kind of invade places, he has these sort of justifications that the rest of the world rolls their eyes and goes, well, no, you just annexed Crimea and conquered it. But they at least seem reasonable enough that no one, at least in the Western world, is willing to risk a war with Russia over it. That's exactly what Germany did in the 1930s, right? Germany annexes Austria, and everyone's like, well, they all speak German, okay, fine. Or they invade and take over the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia, and it's like, well, a lot of those people spoke German. The exact same thing is happening in Ukraine, right? The eastern parts of Ukraine, there's a lot more Russian ethnic people whose original language is Russian. And part of that is because over the last 200 years, Russia has basically deported or killed a lot of Ukrainian people and then basically sent Russian people to go and like settle that land to give it a better claim to take it. It's exactly what has happened in Crimea. So for the last 8 years now, Ukraine has been sort of in this crisis where they are relying on military support from the NATO nations, especially the United States and the rest of Western Europe, to basically prevent a Russian invasion, which is what it's looking like might be about to happen. For reference, you might have heard of Ukraine in the news, especially with its current president, Zelensky. He was the guy that was on the other end of that phone call with President Trump when President Trump was basically saying like, yeah, sure, you'll get your military supplies. But hey, what about digging up some dirt on Hunter Biden? If you remember that whole phone call that got into the news and was controversial, right? There's like, we've always given Ukraine military support to try to prevent a Russian invasion. And then that support got paused for a while when, people in Ukraine were ostensibly investigating Hunter Biden and his business interests there or whatever. Oh yeah, and did I mention that the vast majority of oil and gas pipelines that take oil and gas from Russia and send it to Western Europe go through, you guessed it, Ukraine. So Western Europe especially is balancing an independent Ukraine versus potential war and chaos that could disrupt their access to oil and gas. Cool.